President Joe Biden dropping out of the presidential race. For me personally, it was no surprise. And for the Democratic Party, it was something that I think was expected. And it was one of those things within the party that was not if, but when. And I think the debate was the litmus test for the decision to be made. And here's why. If you notice during the debate, okay, and again, it was a Democratic friendly debate, meaning that I'm sure prior to the debate, he knew the questions that were going to be asked, which means he could prepare to respond to the questions that were going to be asked by the moderator. However, the problem is, even though he could prepare for the moderator's question, he could not prepare for the rebuttals coming from former President Trump. So that's where he had to respond on the fly. That's where he had to shoot from the hip. And if you notice, every time he did that, his responses were even at some points incoherent, or if they were coherent towards the end, he would just trail off. And even at one point, even Donald Trump said, and I don't even think it was being malicious, but he just said, I could not understand what he just said. So I think that was where the Democratic Party decided, yeah, we have to make a push and make it understood to his advisors that this man cannot go forward in this race. Now, even though it took them over a week or a week and a half, 2 weeks, whatever it was, to formally come out and say, hey, I'm not going to respond. I'm not going to go forward in this presidential race. That decision was made, I'm sure, the day after. And here's why I say that. At any point during Joe Biden's presidency where he had a faux pas or where he had a performance or a speech that didn't quite come off as being presidential or coherent, the media outlets were inundated with excuses from his press corps, meaning that the next day, if you listen to CNN, Fox News, and whatever you listen to, there was always an excuse. From Corinne Jean-Pierre, we were told that the reason for President Biden's poor performance was that he had a cold. He was sick. He was on medication. There was always spin. After the debate, there was no spin. He gave one interview where he said he wasn't feeling well. But yet there was nothing from the media outlets, because every media outlet just said, hey, he performed poorly during that debate. There was no excuse from the press corps. There was nothing from his advisors to the media outlets saying, hey, this is why Joe Biden performed poorly during that debate. There was none of that. But every single time when he did prior to that, there was something from Corinne Jean-Pierre to the press corps or from his staff to the media outlets explaining his faux pas, his poor performance. That didn't happen this time, which told me that everyone in his inner circle basically acquiesced and said, yeah, there is no way we can excuse this performance. There is no way we can let this happen. So again, it took them a couple of weeks, but eventually that's where it went, to him having to admit, yeah, I cannot go forward in this race. And he had no choice but to say, okay, I'm going to have my vice president move forward and take my place in this race. And that's a very interesting thing as well, because there was no way he could not endorse, Kamala Harris. Because if you pick someone as your vice president, you're basically saying, this is the person that's going to succeed me if for whatever reason I cannot do the job. So yeah, President Biden dropping out of the race, it was no surprise to me, and I'm sure it wasn't a surprise to many others as well. So moving forward, let's see where it goes.